Hi, I'm Robert Ranieri. In this video, I'll be going over the eMarket Scorecard. The eMarket Scorecard is a Power BI report. It's designed to give users access to key performance indicators, or KPIs, for online retailer data. It's meant to be a one-stop shop where users can see high-level trends in performance, as well as take action at the lowest level of granularity, in this case by item. If you go to my website and go to the Scorecard tab, you'll see a Power BI report here. Now you can interact with it natively regularly on the website, but I would recommend going into full screen mode to take the biggest action. This default first tab shows the scorecard. It's a high level understanding of sales and share in the market. Now, putting ourselves into the shoes of a business, let's imagine that this is fake data and the business has several different business units that they slice by. The business is broken into the beverages business, the pets business, the food business, and the supplements business. And each one of those business units has their own subcategory of different products that they sell that might reside in one subcategory or another. Looking at this report, we can quickly get a sense of how the sales are performing in each and every business and subcategory. Looking at beverages, for example, we've selected last 4 weeks. So the sales of the category of all beverages within this online retailer is $131 million. The PV is the prior value. In this case, we're clicked on last year. So the last year sales is 126 roughly million dollars. That's a 4.2% increase for the entire category of beverages, but you can slice those beverages into water, cider, tea, kombucha, coffee, juice, and smoothies, right? Same thing goes for pets, food, and supplements. Now, if I click last 13 weeks, L13, it's going to show me the sales of the latest 13 weeks. And so you can automatically click these different time frame selections and get a sense of how the market is changing. There's 26. It might take a minute to load, but it will load and then show you the sales. Latest 52 is one whole year. You can even do it by calendar date or your company's own fiscal year to date. If you click last X weeks, it lets you insert as the user the number of weeks you want to look back by. So if you just wanted to do 1, it shows the sales from 6/14/2025, just that 1 week compared to last year at the same time. Going back to latest 4 weeks, it'll override the last X weeks filter. And we could also look at prior periods. So instead of comparing to last year, we're going to look at the latest 4 weeks compared to the 4 weeks before that. And we can see that the prior value does change. The current value doesn't change, obviously, because you're always selected on the latest 4 for the current, but the prior value will change. To keep interpreting this first screenshot here, we then have the sales in the current year of the company that makes beverages, pets, foods, and supplements within them, right? They don't represent the entire market, they represent a piece. And so their share for the beverages is 8.1%. Now they do better within the coffee and the juice and the smoothie industry, and not so good within the cider industry as far as beverages are concerned. Pets, on the other hand, has a higher share at 16.5, food at 10.5, and lastly supplements at 30.2. You can also see the change in year-over-year comparison of that share. The prior value, for example, in supplements, there's only one subcategory here, vitamins. It was at 33.1. That represents a basis point change of 2.9%. So quickly in one snapshot, we can get an understanding of how the business is performing overall, whether sales are up or down, and whether we're pacing the market. In this case, considering all of the variables and different categories that we play in, the market is up 7.6%. However, our company's sales are only up 5.5%, meaning we're not pacing the market or underperforming, and our share is losing, even though our sales are going up. The next big filter I want to talk about is the week selection filter. From here, you can drop this down and go back in time, for example, to May 10th. If I click this, it'll now reperform all the calculations as if it was May 10th. This is nice and unique to Power BI, where we can have something schedule a refresh to the database and automatically populate it so that we're hands off and don't have to do any manual refreshes. I do want to note, however, that the data itself only goes back until the beginning of 2024. So if you were to scroll down and try to do a report that says what's the year-over-year comparison of 2024, you would start with selecting the latest week of 2024 and then selecting last 52 weeks. Those would be the whole sales for 2024, but there is no prior value since the report doesn't go back until 2023. The last filter I want to talk about is the metrics filter. Dropping it down, you can see there's sales, 1P sales, units, 1P units, and top of search spend. 1P units represents the specific company's own sales that they get in the market, not just the branded sales. So if I click this, the categories will not change. However, the company sales will for 1P sales. Notice how the category stayed the same. However, the 1P sales is slightly changing. Now, the majority of the sales of this company are generated from 1P or first party sales. However, a third party sale, just for the definition, is a different distributor or company that has their hands on your own branded data and sells it in an online retailer. So that's the difference between 1P and 3P and why it's useful for the company. You can also click units and just as easily click top of search spend so you can see, are you spending appropriately to your share numbers. The last toggle is simply just Canada versus the United States. If you wanted to toggle to the US or Canada, you can simply do so with a click of a button, or you could just control click and select both, and you'd see the totality of sales, in case there's an example out there for an international business. Moving on to the next page, you can click the arrow, and it'll go to the top N brands. You could also do it by dropping this down and selecting top N brands. Here's where I'd like to take some time to talk about market dynamics. For an example, let's drop down the business filter and select beverages. This is going to filter the category that we're talking about to just beverages. The top N selection is pre-selected to 20, so we're going to show the top 20 brands within the industry of beverages and their sales. Now you'll see at the top we have a competitive brand, Liquidity, followed by Springwater, Riverly, Erosion. When we get to Aquatic, we have that highlighted to note that that is our own brand. In this dummy data set, Aquatic and Bottled Up are owned by this company. You can see the sales in the current year of 81 million and sales in the prior year of 79 million. You could also see the share that these 20 brands make up of 61.8%. Then the rest of the other brands in the market represent 38.2. If you drop down the N selection filter and just do 5, it'll then readapt and reperform the calculation for just the top 5 brands. The top 5 brands represent 31% of the market. If you drop it down again and do 50, the top 50 brands represent 80.5% of the market. We can get a sense of how competitive this particular industry is by using this filter. This is a much different story, a much more competitive landscape than something like supplements, for example. If I clicked on just supplements, this particular company owns the #1 brand, Vitalmins, with a 30.2% market share. The top 20 brands make up nearly 90% of the business. The top 10 brands, I filter for just 10, make up 80%. This market dynamic acts like an oligopoly, where there's very few brands representing the majority of the business. If we go back to our beverages example, users have the ability to highlight even more metrics, not just to see where their sales have changed over time, but they can break down the metrics, and now they have the units and the traffic, as well as organic traffic, paid traffic, other traffic, top of search spend, average sale price, conversion rates, and so on and so forth. I've only included the KPIs that matter to this particular company, but for example, if you wanted to generate your own report and just look at sales and units, you would be able to select sales in the current year, units in the current year, and let's just say the share point change for sales as well. And that'll all come in. The users have the ability to select and choose whichever reports they want within this, as well as get a high level understanding of how the market is performing. If you click View Page by Item, it's going to do this exact same thing, except just for items now. So these are specific items. This is a water item. It's got a code linked to it. Again, dummy data, but it's a water item. And it ranks first in the market and represents 1.9% of the entire share. If I click on beverages, though, it's going to make more sense. It represents nearly 3% of the entire market. Now, this particular company that we're in the shoes of has the 6th, 11th, and 18th ranked item within the market. If you drop that down to 50, they also own the 31st, 34th, and 44th highest ranked item in terms of sales for the latest 4 weeks compared to last year. Obviously, when you do it by item, it's going to take a lot more items to get a share. The top 50 items represent 30% of the market online in this particular category. With the addition of the filters on the side and the selection of the metrics, you can generate any top N report that you want, and you specify the N with the breakdown of the selection here. Moving on to the next page, we can click the arrow below and come to the Brand KPIs tab. This is meant to answer the question of why a brand is trending up or down in the marketplace. The KPIs listed at the top are sales, units, total traffic, organic traffic, paid traffic, other traffic, top of search spend, average sale price, conversion rate, and the spend to sales ratio. The traffic, by the way, think of that as just a click when you're online at a marketplace and you click something or add it to your cart. Organic traffic is when you click on something that natively appears from a search term, whereas paid traffic is something that you click on that is sponsored by that particular brand. There should be a little indication that it's a sponsored placement. Other traffic is traffic that is being sourced to that particular product from a blog or something outside of that particular website's search function. The example I'd like to highlight here is for supplements. So click supplements and unclick beverages, and we get our new report. Vitalmins, if you remember, is a brand that is owned by this fake company. You have the market total up top, and then each and every individual brand's KPIs for the rest of the market at the bottom, sorted by the number of sales. Highlighting on Vitalmins, the sales or the benchmark for this is 30%. That's their market share. The same number, if you go back to the scorecard that we see here, that 30% here is their share because they own the brand Vitalmins, and that's their share of the market, 30.2%. You can keep reading the rest of the KPIs as you go across, but it'll tell you why this particular brand is not pacing the market. Notice how the market is up 13%, but Vitalmins is only up 3%. Why? Now the units that have been sold are up, but there's a distinct gap in organic and paid traffic and a rise in other traffic. So when some other blog or magazine is driving traffic to this particular page, the spend is decreasing, and most importantly, the main reason why the Vitalmins brand is not keeping up is that average sale price is declining. So users are opting to select cheaper products within the Vitalmins portfolio. Another main reason why Vitalmins isn't keeping up with the rest of the market is that brand 79 is doing wonderfully, unprecedented growth. Both brand 79 and brand 89 have a above 60, in this case, a 92% increase in sales. One might ask the question, okay, brand 79, let's put a pin in that. Let's try to figure out what they're doing in the marketplace that's increasing so much. So within this tab, you can click any business, any category, and even any brand if you want to just hone in on one specific brand to see what the story in the marketplace is doing. This is meant as a high-level overview to see and ascertain the trends of your competitors and see where the brands rank in the market and what their strategy is and how you can adapt and follow suit. Moving on to the next particular tab, the KPI Trends. This is just showing the nearly exact same information, but just over time and trending. Instead of having a static view where you're selecting a specific week, I'm showing you things over time. And we have every metric in the book open and available to us. You can even go further back in time or select your dates to see what's happening, select specific brands. Like for example, if I just wanted to see what was going on with Vitalmins, I can see that in the marketplace and get a sense of by month what's happening in the market. I'll go back one more step and go back to the brand KPIs tab and highlight brand 79 as our use case here. So if I click brand 79 and I copy that, I'll jump now to the very, very last tab by navigating to the item monitoring tab. And I want to figure out why brand 79 is seeing such growth. So if I drop down the brands and I type in brand 79 and I click them, off the bat, I can see that there are 2 net new items. So they have 2 items in their brand portfolio within supplements that are new at the very bottom, representing $25,000 and $1,000 worth of sales. And their other 2 items that were there still a year ago have seen growth of 77 and 80%. I can drop down more metrics and see what's happening at an item level. So if I go drop down, let's check average sale price first. So average sale price, what the prior price was, the change, and the delta. It doesn't seem like there's a significant change in price driving the sales. So uncheck those. But for traffic, we know that there's going to be a large increase. We can click organic traffic, and we can click paid traffic as well, and we'll see that the percentage increases are extremely high. Paid traffic in particular, very, very high. And that would lead me to believe that the spend, if I keep scrolling down here, the spend, the delta, and the change, if I put those 3 in there, is a 201 and a 225% increase. That's the story of why brand 79 has taken market share. They've increased their spend dramatically from year over year, and the sales have followed. In summary, this report gives the users the ability to see high-level trends in the market, both at a category and at a brand perspective, and gives them the ability to see at the granular level of items what's going on and how to tactically take an action to mitigate losses or mitigate share loss and increase growth.